Good morning. It is so great to be inside where it's warm and cozy. Yay, grateful for heat. Thank you everybody for coming out on this frigid morning to be in spirit together. I am Paula Land. I am your platform chair today, and this is the last time I will be able to say I am a grateful member of your board. So, last time for now. We'll see. I might need more than one. So that is an open invitation to all. Then, if you haven't heard, hopefully you all got your letters yesterday, we're having the annual meeting next Sunday at 11:30 in the community room, and of course there will be food. And this is really an important meeting because we take that opportunity once a year to talk about the past year, to look forward to the coming year. So you hear an update on our financial condition. You will get to hear from the minister and the board president. And typically we have elections, though it appears we may not be having an election this year. So come and let's talk about that. Please make every effort to attend that meeting. It really is such an important time for your leadership to stand before you and share with you in community about the condition of this awesome spiritual community. Okay, then if I know lots of you already have your tickets, but for $10, you can get your ticket for the first annual Stone Soup Supper. And a lot of people have been kind of curious about the stone soup aspect of this. It's where he has a stone, they say they're having soup, everybody brings one item. Started out with nothing, but because everybody brought one item, there was enough for everybody, and there was plenty. And so plan to come on Friday, January 29th. So that's not this Friday, but the following Friday. Bring your friends and let's eat soup together. It sounds like there's going to be, again, gluten-free options, so don't let your dietary restrictions prevent you from coming. Let's see. Take a look at your the small group ministry activity on the back. This is an easy thing to just stick in your purse or fold it up in your back pocket so you can keep track of what's going on here. All right. Let's take a moment to say together our invocation, and after the invocation, we'll move into a centering prayer. The invocation is on the right-hand side of your bulletin. Together, there is only one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. And now, as you close your eyes and feel the support of the chair beneath you, take a moment to be aware of your breath, knowing that with that breath, we are breathing in spirit. We are breathing out energy. As we breathe in, we recognize our oneness. We feel the connection to those around us. The love emanates from our heart. and expands out into the universe. Take a moment to just feel the presence of spirit within you and within all. Is it on?
Yes. Yeah.
So welcome to all of our live streamers out there, and welcome to our people in the flesh that are here. And the other thing I was thinking about this week, Lisa Klosterman and Edwin Lindman, who are two members of our really crack tech team, have been working on this project for a while, and it's been a dream and a vision of mine for about 3 or 4 years now. And I was thinking about it this morning when I was getting ready, and I thought about the faculty of faith and how that brings to manifest the things that we dream about and imagine. And I also, you've heard me say before, my mama never called me patient. I've also learned in this community and in this career that allowing dreams to come to fruition and be made manifest is a true art. I'm just so excited. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Lisa. So, yes, they know how to do stuff that we've never even imagined. As Paula so aptly mentioned, today we commemorate the life of a truly, truly remarkable person, a man whose life was cut short, yet whose life was so meaningful in the years that he was with us and on the planet. So, thinking about this guy, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I'm really in the mood for a hard, heart-hitting message. When he spoke, he was very verbose, yet he didn't waste words, and they were always hard-hitting messages. He calls us awake with his message. I don't know about your perception when you look out at our world. We were explaining to our 4-year-old grand twins last Sunday, they have a little earth. And we were explaining this earth thing and how it's part of a great big universe. But this is our world, and our world feels unsettled to me. Anybody else have that feeling? I'm seeing women, and this is more, particularly in the US, women are struggling for freedom of health rights, to make their own choices about their own bodies. What a concept. And struggling for economic pay, economic equality. African Americans are also struggling for economic equality, and they're struggling against crazy, insane police brutality. Ethnic groups are struggling for equal rights and the simple right to live in the USA. Around the world, there's just so much going on. Innumerable folks are struggling to just have basic rights and to have basic, simple survival. You and I, we have the privilege of living in a democracy. We have a vote. We have opportunities to vote with our lives every day by the choices that we make, and we have a voice. So I say, let us use our privilege for the betterment of humankind. Dr. King invested his entire life urging people to do this. And today I share a message that he delivered June of 1959. If I did the math right, that was 57 years ago. I was 4. Some of you weren't here yet. And for those of us who've been around long enough to remember those times, the 50s and the 60s, bring that picture to mind, what our cultural conditions were like. And then I invite you to set it alongside the picture of today's cultural conditions. It's striking to me that though his message was delivered 57 years ago, it's very pertinent today. And he entitled his address, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. It's a commencement address that he gave at Morehouse College. There can be no gainsaying of the fact that we are experiencing today one of the greatest revolutions that the world has ever known. Indeed, there have been other revolutions, but they've been local and isolated. The distinctive feature of the present revolution is that it is worldwide. It is shaking the foundations of the East and the West. It has engulfed every continent of the world. You can hear its deep rumblings from the lowest village street to the highest intellectual ivory tower. Every segment of society is being swept into its mainstream. The great challenge facing every member of this graduating class is to remain awake, alert, and creative through this great revolution. In thinking of the challenges which this revolution brings to us, I am reminded of a familiar story that comes down to us from the pen of Washington Irving. It is the story of Rip Van Winkle. The one thing we all remember about this story is the fact that Van Winkle slept for 20 years. Oh, that sounds so delicious. But there is another significant fact in this story. It's often overlooked. It's the change that took place in the pictures on the wall of the little inn in the town on the Hudson from which Rip went up into the mountains for his long sleep. When he went up, the wall had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down, it had the picture of another George, George Washington. Rip, looking up at the picture of George Washington, was completely lost. When he started his quiet sleep, America was still under the domination of the British Empire. And when he came down, she was a free and independent nation. This incident suggests that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle was not that he slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up on the mountain, a revolution was taking place which completely changed the face of the world. And Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. There is nothing more tragic than sleeping through a great revolution. We do not have to look very far to see signs of the revolution that is taking place in our world today. 1959, 2016. There is a revolution in the social and political structure of our world on the question of the equality of humankind. The great masses of people are determined to end the exploitation of their lives and share in their own future and destiny. They are moving toward their goal like a tidal wave. They are saying in no uncertain terms, colonialism and racism must go. Can I get an amen? Amen. The practical consequences of this revolution are clearly seen. In 1944, the British had under her control more than 500 million people in Asia and Africa. In 1929, there were only 2 independent countries in the whole of Africa, Liberia and Ethiopia. But today, the picture has greatly changed. In less than 3 decades, 8 independent countries have arisen in Africa. And in 1960, 4 more will be added: Nigeria, the Cameroons, Togoland, and Somalia. I predict that in 10 years, 1959, I predict that in 10 years, the vast majority of the countries of Africa will be independent, and that a funeral processional will be forming for the eternal burial of colonialism and imperialism in that section of the world. The man did have a dream. This revolution, which is engulfing our world, is seen in the United States in the transition from a segregated to an integrated society. The social revolution which is taking place in this country is not an isolated, detached phenomenon. It is a part of the worldwide revolution that is taking place. It is impossible to understand the revolution in America without understanding the great change that has taken place in the Negro's evaluation of self. Living through the long night of slavery and segregation, many Negroes lost faith in themselves. Many came to feel that perhaps they were inferior, for they were forced to live with a system that continually stared them in the face saying, "You are less than. You are not equal to." Then something happened to the Negro. Circumstances made it possible and necessary for them to travel more, the spread of the automobile, the upheavals of 2 world wars, and the Great Depression. A rural plantation background was gradually supplanted by migration to urban and industrial communities. Cultural life gradually rose through the steady decline of crippling illiteracy. Economic security gradually rose through the growth of industry and the influence of organized labor. All of these forces co-joined to cause Negroes to take a new look at themselves. Negro masses all over began to reevaluate themselves. They came to feel that they were somebody. Their religion revealed to them that God loves all children, and that the important thing about a person is not the texture of their hair or the color of skin, but the texture and quality of the soul. With this new sense of self-respect and dignity, a new Negro emerged. The tension which we are witnessing today in race relations can be explained in part by the revolutionary change in the Negro's evaluation of their nature and destiny. Black Lives Matter. And by the determination to struggle and sacrifice until the walls of segregation have finally been crushed by the battering rams of surging justice. Along with the Negroes' changing image of themselves came the Supreme Court's momentous decision of May 17th, 1954, outlawing segregation in public schools. In this decision, the Supreme Court of this nation unanimously affirmed that the old Plessy doctrine must go. It affirmed in unequivocal terms that separate facilities are inherently unequal, and that to segregate a child on the basis of race is to deny that child equal protection of the law. As a result of this decision, revolutionary change is taking place in the structure of American society. Let nobody fool you. All of the loud noises we hear today in terms of massive resistance are merely the death groans of a dying system. There is not only a revolution taking place in the social and political structure of humankind, but there's a revolution taking place in our scientific and technological development. Humankind, through scientific genius, has been able to dwarf distance and place time in chains. We've been able to carve highways through the stratosphere and we're making preparations to go to the moon. These revolutionary changes have brought us into a space age. The world is now geographically one. Yes? Now, the great question facing us today is whether we will remain awake through this world-shaking revolution and achieve the new mental attitudes which conditions demand. While this tremendous social change takes place, there would be nothing more tragic than to allow our mental and moral attitudes to sleep. Which begs the question, what is mine to do? May I suggest a few of the changed responses that we must make in order to remain awake during this great revolution? First, we are challenged to rise above the narrow confines of our individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. The individual or nation that feels it can live in isolation has allowed itself to sleep through the revolution. The geographical togetherness of the modern world makes our very existence dependent on coexistence. We must all learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we all perish together as fools. Because of our involvement in humanity, we must be concerned about every human being. I've just returned to the country from a memorable visit to India. Although I had a most rewarding experience in that great country, there were many depressing moments. How can one avoid being depressed when he sees with his own eyes millions of people sleeping on the sidewalks and discovers that millions go to bed hungry at night? How can one avoid being depressed when he discovers that out of India's population of 400 million people, more than 300 million make an annual income of less than $70 per year? Most of them have never seen a doctor or dentist. All of this has resulted from centuries of exploitation and oppression inflicted upon the India people by foreign powers. As I observed these conditions, I found myself asking, can we in America stand idly by and not be concerned? The answer is an emphatic no, because the destiny of America is tied up with the destiny of India. As long as India or any other nation is insecure, we can never be totally secure. We must use our vast resources of wealth to aid the undeveloped nations of the world. Too often, we've used our wealth to establish military bases, while neglecting the need of establishing bases of genuine concern and understanding. All of this amounts to saying in the final analysis that all life is interrelated. No nation or individual is independent. We are interdependent. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. As long as there's poverty in the world, I can never be rich, even if I possess $1 billion. As long as millions of people are inflicted with debilitating diseases and cannot expect to live more than 35 years, I can never be totally healthy, even if I receive a perfect bill of health from the Mayo Clinic. Strangely enough, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. John Donne placed this truth in graphic terms when he affirmed, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent." And he goes on to say, "Anyone's death diminishes me because I am involved in humankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. An understanding of man's present predicament may be found in the distinction between civilization and culture. Professor Massever of Columbia University, following the German sociologist Alfred Weber, has clearly set forth the distinction. Civilization refers to the things we use. Culture to what we are. Civilization is the complex of devices, mechanisms, techniques by means of which we live. Culture is the realm of spiritual ends expressed in art, literature, morals, and religion, for which, at best, we live. The great problem confronting us today is we have allowed our civilization to outdistance our culture. We've allowed our mentality to outrun our morality. We've allowed our technology to outdistance our theology. We've allowed the means by which we live to tower above the ends by which we live. So we've ended up producing a generation of guided missiles and misguided men. Unless we awake and solve this problem soon, our civilization will not only be indicted for sleeping through a revolution, we may well be destroyed before we have the opportunity to arise from our complacent slumber. A third response that this revolutionary period demands is that of achieving excellence in our various fields of endeavor. This is particularly true for those of us who are emerging from the yoke of oppression as a result of the present revolution. If we allow ourselves to be content with sheer mediocrity, we will be sleeping at a time that we should be fully awake. Too many doors will be opening to us that were not opened in the past. And the great challenge we confront is to be prepared to enter those doors as they open. Emerson said in 1871, if a man can write a better book, preach a better sermon, make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. This has not always been true for us, but the social revolution that is taking place will make it increasingly true. In this new age that is emerging, we'll be forced to compete with people of all races and nationalities. Therefore, we cannot aim merely to be good Negro teachers, good Negro doctors, good Negro ministers, good Negro skilled laborers. Maybe that was all right in the past, but today, if we're merely seeking to do a good Negro job, we have already failed our matriculation examination for entrance into the University of Integration. We have failed to remain awake for the Great Revolution. Above all, whatever your life's work happens to be, do it well. And do it with such dedication and thoroughness that even God Almighty will smile with approval. And if it falls in the category of an ordinary job, do it in an extraordinary way. So as we prepare this morning for a time of meditation, and as we wrap our hearts and minds around what our social climate is, what our political climate is on our planet, I don't know about you, but when I ponder this big topic, the question that always arises for me is, what is mine to do? And I do believe we vote with our lives. I do believe we vote with our choices. I do believe we vote with our voices. So as we head into meditation, I invite us today to be with that question, thinking about the state of the universe as we know it today, and thinking about what we see and what might concern or disturb us, and simply put the question, what is mine to do? I'd like to lead us into meditation with one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The other thought that I would add to Dr. King's thought is fear cannot drive out fear. Only faith, only love can do that. If we look out at our world and see unrest, distress, terrorism, trouble, poverty, diseases that could so easily be taken care of, what is our first task? For me, it's remembering God is in the midst of this. What we are seeing are the images of our own mind playing out in our world. We're seeing the collective consciousness of billions and billions of human beings playing out in our world. We're each a vibration in that consciousness. What is mine to do? Connect with Spirit, align with Spirit, raise my vibration to one of deep, abiding peace. Connect with Spirit and align with Spirit and raise my vibration to one of the pure activity of divine love. There is no greater power. Charles Fillmore taught us that. Divine love, the mighty power that harmonizes everyone and everything in the universe. It's not us and them, my friends. It's us and us. And it is truly divine love that binds us all. Be still and know that I am love. I am peace. I am God. Great segue into a love offering, don't you think? Now comes the time for us, our tithes, our gifts, our love offerings. And I was thinking about this in context of Dr. King's message. You know, if someone is living in poverty, I cannot be rich, even though I possess $1 billion. And I remember the first time that really clicked with me in a prosperity class at Unity Village. Poverty exists out there because it exists in my mind. And what I've learned over the years is there can be, in God, there can be no such thing as lack, no such thing as not enough, no such thing as poverty. So what is mine to do is share God's good. Not mine. Fell out of the sky, right, Ruth? Came right through my bank account, and I use it for good because that's my spiritual responsibility, my spiritual stewardship. So as you share your good this morning, I invite you to put with that good the energy of joy, the energy of giving with gratitude, and the awareness that we're sharing God's good. Let's bless this business. There's a blessing in our bulletin that starts with the words divine love, and I invite you to know them with me. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am grateful. So do we all get to join in at some point? In this beautiful energy of gratitude, knowing that God's good flows so freely and so easily in us, as us, and through us. We share with grateful hearts, and together we dedicate these gifts to the work of Spirit. Always, always, always giving thanks. Amen and amen. Thank you. Oh, what a great day. It was 40-some degrees a few days ago. Does anyone recall that? And it'll be 40 degrees again another day. Okay, before we close with our peace song and our prayer for protection, remind you all that we have a really scrumptious brunch over there, so join in that good. Ruth, I'm not seeing Oneness Blessing people. Is that at 11:30 though?
They're coming.
Okay, okay.
She would be here
After service.
And everybody, have a little nosh. Don't think you have to rush in to have the Oneness Blessing without a little bit to eat. So we'll wait for you.
Let your tummy settle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a great day for that blessing. That's going to be really powerful. So yeah, grab an extra bite, 2 helpings of zucchini bread maybe, and then come back up. It's in the chapel after we finish our brunch. And then the other piece that I want to mention, I feel like we've talked about it so much in the office end of things. I'll be here next week. We're having an annual meeting, and then the day of the annual meeting, I'm leaving to go to Kansas City to Unity Village. We have the week of interviews for the ministerial candidates. And so I'll be down there the week between the 25th and the 31st, however that is. And then January 31st, we're giving the message at Unity Village. But after that, the next day, I get to be on sabbatical, spiritual sabbatical for the month of February, which I am very blessed to have included in my ministerial contract with our Board of Trustees. So you don't need me. This place runs like a top. We have a really nice guest speaker lined up to do a great series on a very interesting book, one of my favorites. And everything else is in capable hands. And I'll be sidling up to the spiritual fuel pump, getting 2 IVs for 30 days. So, like I said, I'll be here next week, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that because that's where my mind is. How about a peace song? Invite